Got our one-man studio.
Two-man studio.
Quite a setup. It's impressive.
Oh, thanks. This is my favorite part. The fancy lights. We just set up I moved in here a couple months ago. It's my new home, and then we set up the studio. We started doing some podcasts, 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago, maybe?
Yeah,
maybe 2.5 weeks ago, yeah.
Brian Somerville?
Yeah, Brian Somerville was our first. Yeah, he was pretty awesome. He was a former business magnate.
Oh.
Extremely well. I gotta quit clicking this. But and he got mixed up in some addiction issues and really just turned himself around.
Yeah.
I gotta move closer to my damn microphone here. But so he was pretty good. And then Stephen White, he's becoming a regular on the program. He was a young man that was in trouble a long time ago, and turned his life around. He's been a huge help with Easy Awakenings, and he did some cool stuff. But we, sir, are here to talk about you. So I always screw this up. It's Hoden Sunim.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was right on. Yeah.
I like to call you Hoden Sun because it sounds Japanese. Or Odin's son from the Thor movies.
Yeah.
So So you're an interesting dude. You make sure that's recorded. Okay, yeah. You are. I know you're in marketing for your day job.
Yeah. So I own an agency. It's really brand strategy. So I started as a designer, really uneducated too. I mean, I didn't have a degree. I just started working, and I used to draw. I was really more into fine art. So I went to school for 1 year to be an illustrator, really to be like a painter.
Okay.
So much more into painting and drawing and things like that. And as a young, rebellious punk kid that would never sell out to the man, and then you don't eat for a while. So I got through it. I realized that, the school I went to, Kendall, for a year out in Grand Rapids, and, it wasn't a good fit at the time. I didn't really feel like I was pushing my art, at all, and it was kind of a struggle to be out there. I had been working jobs prior to pay for it myself, and money was running out. So I left, came back and started working, and just fell over backwards into graphic design, which you can get paid for. So I started in printing back in the old days when there was changing the sheets on the press. I used to work in a shop as a teenager, cleaning presses and cutting business cards, and long career. I think I just hit 33 or 34 years doing really the same thing, and eventually into design, and now I own an agency called Brand Voodoo. It's a new one. I had an older one that we just closed. My partner and I separated and kind of went our own ways. That just happened a few months ago. But,
sure.
I do a lot of brand strategy and design for, consumer goods or local companies or startups or whatever it is. Try to help people understand who they are, where they're going, what they should say, where they should say it, things like that.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
And I have a new one to talk about. I'm really excited about because I'm trying to transition out of that career. So I decided I'm almost 10 years as a monk now, running the center, involved with people, plus all that business discipline that I had been doing, helping leadership teams understand themselves. And so I blended those two things together, working with people individually and working with corporations. And I'm launching a company called Path Foundry.
Okay.
And it's going to be like a holistic life coach type system.
Oh, nice.
I hate the term life coach, so I'm going to not use that life coach because that means a lot of things.
It's abused too much anyway.
But that's kind of the concept of it, but it's much more structural. There's a technology and data gathering component to it.
Oh, nice.
That hopefully goes live next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. I have to talk a little more about that. But you mentioned something which leads me to that haircut.
Yeah.
Because that's an awesome haircut.
Yeah, thank you.
And that looks like it's very specific. Let me get you guys, can I get you to scooch over?
That way?
Yeah. You're good, Victor. You're good. There we go. Yeah. Get real close and cozy. But, so as sweet as a haircut as that is, what's it for?
The haircut?
Yeah.
Really, this is just my haircut.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought it was for the practice.
No,
Okay.
no, it's not related to anything. This is
okay.
as close as I can get to still having a mohawk and have people take me sort of seriously.
It's pretty. I've always, every time I see you, I'm like, damn, that's a slick haircut.
It's got nothing to do with being a monk. I mean, if anything, I'd have no hair, really. I mean, I shaved my head for almost a decade and shaved my face and stuff as well. So
for the practice?
Yeah. It was required for, I mean, anytime I was in Korea and all through, and when I was Hangzhou, when I was going through all my training period, we keep our hair very, very short. But once you kind of go full monk, like when you really get in there, like you shave your head the whole time when you're living in. Anytime I went to Korea, I would have to shave it all back off because that's.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of required.
I got you.
So why is that? Why is that required? What does that? What does that mean?
Yeah. So there's a long history of it, and part of it was the practicality, and there's a symbolic gesture of why we would do it at the beginning.
Is it something that have to do with attachment to this world?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's mimicking the aspect of when. So let's go all the way back. 2,600 years, you need like flashback stuff going on, right?
Yeah. You can add the effect.
The effect of flashback music. You go all the way back to.
I'll have to pull that out. Right?
So here's Siddhartha, right? Here's this guy. He's a wealthy guy. His father owns a kingdom and runs a kingdom. He's a prince, and there's a lot of things that come with that type of privilege. And one was having very, very long hair. I mean, it was a sign of nobility. And when he left, when he decided to give up his life, he cut his hair off. It's an act of renunciation of his old ways.
Okay.
It's sometimes referred to as cutting the rose.
Okay.
Trying to cut the hair away as a symbol of letting go of the past, letting go of your old self. And we go through that even today. It's an act of renunciation. And when I went through ordination, you're really essentially supposed to say no more to who you were, and now you become. We're typically not supposed to use our mundane names, our given names. We use only Dharma names.
Okay. You mean in the temple?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I don't in the West. It's impractical, especially for business. But there's an idea of letting your old identity go, and it's tied very closely to removing any type of symbol of anything that would actually have identity around who you are. So second aspect is incredibly practical when you are living in a monastery or in a situation where you don't have access to keep clean all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to just throw water on your head and like in face you're a lot cleaner, and hair is not very, very easy to keep up. So,
Lots of stuff can get trapped in there.
Yeah, and I found that all the time. When I was shaving my head all those years, I mean, and then, knowing that I had had hair prior, like you get out of the shower, towel off, and look, this is super easy, So.
Well, not too many people can pull that off, so you do it well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a man, like I think the older you get, you start hitting your 30s. Like, let me enjoy my hair as long as I can, because it might be gone a little bit.
And things change. I mean, that's a lot of people focus on that in particular, like. I even joke, like, because at our center, we have a lot of people who are just bald. I mean, they're older guys and they're bald. So I'm like, we're like, that should be our tagline, like, where the monk has hair and the song is all bald, right? So it's just a nature of development when people started to migrate in other areas. Okay.
So the bald guys, their job is to grow hair back. That's how they shave that identity.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't grow hair, I mean, I guess it's not a problem. But right. I thought it was kind of funny in the West. I mean, this is Michigan, and it snows here, so like I'm shaving my head and then wearing a hat all the time. Like, I can grow a hat. I don't need to I don't need to put one on. So
right. Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I want to talk a little bit about Buddhism itself. So and let's clarify this. You are with what sort of sect of Buddhism? Because I know it's a little different.
Yeah, Zen. So we're part of a Zen school. My training was through a Korean Zen school.
Okay.
That I did all my training in a very traditional way.
Is Hoden Sunim, that's Korean?
Korean, yeah. Sunim is actually the Korean version, the Korean honorific. So you brought up, like, in Japanese you'd say, san at the end, like, or sama is the more formal. Probably the better well known that everybody knows in the West is sensei. It's an honorific. When I teach my sword class, they call me Hoden Sensei. They don't call me Hoden Sunim. It's just a different. It's the same thing, but Sunim is just a title given to. It's an honorific, I should say, given to somebody who's a monk, who's clergy, who's a priest, or whatever.
Sure.
And typically, they don't even use the beginning. So they just kind of like you in class. Somebody would say, Sensei, can I ask you a question? People just say Sunim.
Yeah.
It's one less aspect of.
So Hoden is that your Dharma name?
Dharma name, yeah.
Okay.
It's two characters. Hoden in Korean. It's Buk Chun.
Okay.
Ho means or Buk means Dharma, and Chan or Den is the character for field. So the translation of my Dharma name would be Dharma Field.
So you lived in Korea for a bit?
Only when I was there doing training.
Oh, okay.
I've been there a number of times. But
so for how long do you think you were?
When I was there in the monastery, the training part was only 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
In the monastery. It wasn't like I was there years. Now it's actually 3 months minimum.
Oh, nice.
They change that all the time. But, hard for a Western person unless you don't have a family, don't have a job, don't have responsibility to be able to go to Korea and live for 3 months.
Yeah.
I struggled a lot, even for that amount of time. I was at a job at the time. I worked for a company, and I think I had accrued 3 weeks vacation, but you're not allowed to take all your vacation all in one shot. So I had to go up and down the ladder, really, to just try to get permission to walk away from my job for 3 weeks.
I'm bringing you karma. Bringing karma to this organization.
So you, I'm under the understanding you didn't you cut ties with? You kind of started your own thing.
Yeah. So last year, about a year and a half ago. Within that other organization, I was part of the Western part, so really anything outside of Korea, and we were part of the liberal order, the Taego order. There's really 2 main orders, Taego and Joge, and they split really not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. Over the division, really, I got super into the history of this, but when Japan came in and kind of invaded Korea and were occupying that area, they enforced a lot of their practices into the culture that was there. And one of those practices is that the Japanese Buddhist organizations were typically allowed to be married and have families. And they'll literally pass their temples or their practices from typically from father to son, generations.
What period was this?
This would have been, in the 30s, 20s, 30s?
You see, that's interesting to me because, I always looked at Japan around that time as being very sort of like nationalistic and, like fascist.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah, I'd probably have to like Google the exact time frame of this occupation, but consider what was going on. Japan was not a quiet, friendly country, for a long time. Right? And Korea, Korea has a chip on their shoulder for good reason. They've been invaded more times than I think any other country on the planet. There's always somebody, invading Korea. So what ended up happening is the occupation, whatever time frame that was, came in and basically told all of the orders that they had to start following the Japanese way of doing things. So there were nations different. They have families. They have wives and children, and so some of the Korean monks started to do that over a period of time. They started to get married and they had kids, and then when the Japanese left, the two orders were basically like divided on this, and the really conservative said, you need to get rid of your families and your wives. And the people that they're like, no, we have a wife and a family, right? So so they literally just divided, and so the Taego order is considered the liberal, liberal. I'm not going to do air quotes, but you could probably hear it in my voice. Liberal to them is still incredibly conservative to any Western mindset, but the only difference is it allowed people to be married. I've been married almost 25 years, so it's a better fit.
Okay.
So long way of answering your question of how that division happens. I was part of Taego order outside of Korea. We had monks in Canada, U.S., Europe. I was the vice bishop of that order for a couple of years, and trying to get the Western groups to maybe be more accepted, or for maybe the Korean group to understand that we're not Korean.
Sure.
And that our culture is different, and typically around two things, which the way women are treated and the view of homosexuals within certain cultures I can't abide by, in a discriminatory way, I should say. Not just clarify which side of that fence I'm on, right? So, and so I kept trying, and frankly, some of the feedback I was getting and the long view made me think that I just needed to be. I'm from this culture. I'm not Korean, and I don't believe in that way, and the people that I'm trying to help and serve are not that way. So I just felt like we needed a clean break. We needed to be Western if we were going to make it work.
Sure.
So we have a foundation of those things, Japanese, Korean, but we went independent. So we're an independent organization where I created a whole new structure around that. We have a center up in Saginaw now. I think I'm up to 7 Dharma students. 2 are ordained at this point. We have a couple more in the hopper to be ordained. So we're kind of growing our own organization with Western people who are from this culture, who can translate and help. Help.
And you might actually bring in people from the East.
Who
like the ways a little, What I mean?
So a lot of people who come from, who maybe came from Korea or came from other areas, and they came here, and now they're so used to being in the West too. Sure. They probably are looking for a little less conservative, less traditional,
more palatable to their lifestyle.
Right.
Because it's about the practice itself, not just the rules surrounding it. Well, I should say what it does for you. The core of it. But all right. So I wanted to ask you this too. So Zen, and correct me if I'm wrong, it came from Taoism in China mixing with Buddhism. Is that correct?
Yes. Time frame of all of this division that's or separation or change that's going on. So you got to consider the time frame too. It's 500 or 600 years after the Buddha has died, right? So the first Sangha only really stayed together for maybe a generation, about 80 years.
What's a Sangha?
So Sangha originally meant the renunciate, the people that I was talking about. If you wanted to become a monk, you renounce your life and you become basically a beggar. The term bhikkhu, bhikkhuni literally means somebody living by alms. So the members of the ordained community, or the ones who have renounced their life, got together and they lived together, and that's who the Buddha was teaching. And after he died, they all started to separate and go different ways, and a lot of development, a lot of change was going on. But by the time China really started to get settled, keep in mind this, monks just wandered. They just lived and they wandered and they gathered
like gypsies.
Kind of, I mean, they were just they were migrating around, or it would get to some place and maybe a generation later it would move on. But anyway, these groups started to come together in China, and then the Taoist group within China was starting to mix with these Buddhist monks, and they had this. Taoism and Buddhism are very similar in their grand view of maybe the universe and energy and how things work and the nature of things, and so they were together on that. But Taoism doesn't really have a lot of developed practice, I should say.
Right, which that's true. It's almost the opposite of
the
way of no way.
Do the non-doing, right? It sounds awesome, but it's not super practical. But the Buddhist groups were coming in, and they had this really practical way of understanding mind and really how to settle mind. And the term is dhyana, which is the single point concentration of meditation, taking the mind to a single point concentration where there's no more arising, meaning no more arising of anything, right? Any type of dukkha or sukha or anything like that, suffering or joy or whatever. It's basically eliminating or ending the things that cause us to react the way we do through this meditation practice. And the Taoist monks were like, that sounds really, really awesome. And so they blended together and started to share practices and share practice. And the Chinese pronounce dhyana chana. And so chana as a focus became Chan Buddhism, was shortened to Chan Buddhism. People from Korea migrated up actually first into China. You can see where the land masses are. And they heard about this new way of doing things. This is like maybe 3rd century.
Okay.
And they pronounced it Son.
Son?
Son, S-E-O-N. Chan, Son, it's the same. So, you read
in Chinese?
That was in Korean from China, yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically the transliteration into their language.
Okay.
And so Son Buddhism became really its own thing. Guys like Wan Hyo and others brought it back to Korea, and it developed into a very Korean way of doing things. And then the trade route between Japan and Korea is very, very close. That's how a lot of things got into, the rest of that. Even into China, they had to go kind of up through Korea. Mm-hmm. So the Korean Son monks went to Japan, and Japanese pronounced it Zen. So Zen, Son, Chan, Chana, Diana, it's all the same concept.
Okay.
But it's the blending together from these people at that time, two concepts getting together, and really a offshoot of Buddhism. It's based in the same foundation of what Buddhism, the original practice. Sure. That was really the intent. People were, guys like Nagarjuna looked around and said, you guys kind of lost your way. You're adding all this dogma into it. You're all this mystical, magical crap and all these stories. And that's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha is very practical and taught about the mind. And they just were trying to do a reset. Yeah. And Zen is kind of like the reset to me. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what Eckhart Tolle talked about. Eckhart Tolle's a big influence of mine, but he talked about that a bit. How, often religions, they get so built up with extraneous matter, you lose the core of what you're trying to do. It becomes about the religion, not about the effect of the practice. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned Zen was the culmination of Taoism and Buddhism together, and it was really this restart.
Yeah.
So
it was a repositioning, but it wasn't. It was trying to get back to the root. It wasn't trying to, get away from the source. Sure. It's funny you just said something, because I just was working on a talk for this Sunday, and in the talk I even said over the time I feel like I follow the path of the Buddha, but I struggle a little bit with Buddhism because Buddhism as a word means a lot of things to a lot of different
especially
people.
the countries you go to.
Right. And some of the stuff that gets layered on top of it, and a lot of the beliefs and stuff. Like I believe in the core aspect of what it was about.
Yeah. If you go to Thailand, Buddhism is its own thing.
Right. Yeah.
If you go, in fact, Thailand, it's a much more gracious Buddha. He's always bowing. He's always more modest about things. In China, Buddhism is more about finding happiness. From my interpretation. Yeah. It's always about the Buddha. That's why you always see him as a fat guy because he needed the space to laugh.
Well, so the fat guy. I'm glad you brought that up too. So the fat guy is actually not Buddha.
Oh, okay.
So I gave a talk not long ago, and I talked for an hour, and I said, if you take nothing else away from this entire talk, please take away that the fat guy that you see is not the Buddha. It's Hote. Hote is a very specific person within Chinese pantheon, right? Okay. And he represents something really in particular, but not the Buddha. So the Buddha wasn't a fat, jolly, bald, happy guy, right? That's like a representation. If you look at that representation, he's holding a bag, and usually he's got he's raising up a piece of. Hote is good fortune. Mm-hmm. It's like maybe a Buddhist Santa Claus, I guess, right? Okay. So, but it's funny because this is kind of a lot of what I've been trying to talk to people about lately is that, especially in the West, we are so inundated with so many different aspects of other cultures that we really don't know how to separate them or even understand their source, where they come from. So, where do most people encounter a Buddha for the first time, at least in this country? Mm-hmm. What do you think? Chinese restaurant, right? Who's the patron bodhisattva of Chinese restaurants? Hote. Mm-hmm. So you walk into these bars or these restaurants that people from Thailand or, Thailand or China or whatever, they have Hote all over the place, and people think it's the Buddha, and they rub the belly, right? Right. So it sounds like that shouldn't be that big of a deal, but I host people all the time at the center, and they always come in and can I rub the Buddha's belly? I'm like, no, that's super inappropriate. That's not that's not even the same, thing. But
there was some restaurant owner that went, yeah, you can give tip. Rub the belly and give a tip.
Yeah. Good fortune. Yeah. Okay. So it's good though. I mean, in different aspects, to your point, depending on the land that you're in and the way that you see the statuary and the language used and the outfits and the practice in the schools, they're all different. There's there's over 110 different schools of Buddhism.
It's like Christianity.
Yeah.
You spread over so much time. I mean, things are bound to change. You incorporate from different cultures.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Christianity would not be the same without the pagan religions of ancient Rome. So that's just those influenced heavily a lot. And a lot of people, find those practices out for themselves. But a lot of practices in Christianity do come from old pagan traditions.
Yeah.
So, but
Christmas and Easter.
Like Christmas and Easter, like all of them. But anyways, a lot of them, a lot of religions are the same. You spread to a new culture. If you want it to be palatable for the people of that nation, you gotta adjust. Yeah, that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But okay, well, I want to talk to you about meditation, because at Easy Awakenings, we're big into mental health as our thing, mental health education.
Mm-hmm.
We're creating a TV show. It's gonna be on Amazon Prime. It'll be called Mental Health Unplugged. But
good for you guys. That's great.
yeah, that's a huge thing for us. We signed on with Amazon Prime to be the main source of our distribution for high production value stuff.
Yeah.
So the podcast will always be on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then free for everyone. But the movies and documentaries and the TV show, we'll talk to you about that a little later on. But Amazon Prime, guys. But no. So what we do, we don't just like to talk about like mental health. I think mental health is one of those things where, for one, human beings, our nature is to identify with the things around us, right? We spend half of our lives building up our identity, and then the rest of it trying to dismantle the identity so we can find some peace and happiness, because we find out the trouble that goes in with the ego trying to maintain the identity and so on.
Yeah.
So what we do, we try to bring a new approach to mental health, because mental health is a spectrum. Everyone has mental health. Not everyone has a mental illness. One of our core practices in terms of when we help people out to help them find the space that they need to maintain a healthy state of mental health is meditation. Mm-hmm. So I really want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about how meditation plays in your life, what it does for you, what you actually feel. I've been into all kinds of things since I was young. I used to have these crazy out-of-body experiences when I was young. And it really, believe in it was real or not, if it was just my brain, whatever you choose to believe, it changed my life. Mm-hmm. The things that I experienced, the quality, I'd say the quality of consciousness during that state, that was the purest I've ever experienced in my life, that altered the way that I view the world. Mm-hmm. And never mind all of the mystical stuff that may come along with it. But the state of consciousness, I found that I could attain through, say, an out-of-body experience. That was the pinnacle. That was the top. I could achieve that through meditation in a waking state without having to, go through some sort of paranormal experience. Mm-hmm. So when I discovered the effects of meditation, and meditation actually would help me get to those OBE states, out-of-body experience. So I decided to start incorporating that more into my daily life, into waking practices. Meditation serves to help us out so much. It helps us focus. It helps us connect with ourselves. It helps us get over mental issues, mental emotional issues. Mm-hmm. It's how I met this guy right here through meditation. So I want to know what do you consider to be meditation?
Yes, that's a big question.
Yeah.
So I probably better for me to say what I teach and what I focus on and why. So I teach samatha meditation, which is more the foundation of what Zen meditation. Zen, by the way, Zazen is just seated meditation. Okay. So and as I just said, that derivative of when we even say Zen, what we're saying is this derivative of dhyana, being able to get to a single point concentration, mm-hmm. meaning having nothing else arising, the vehicle of how we're created, our form and our mental formations coming together to create consciousness, to create ego. So it's hard to turn off. You really can't turn it off. We have emotional states that get triggered here and there based on the data inputs that we have, and we perceive them, and we put them into categories, and we kind of figure out what we like and we don't like based on all of those things all the time, constantly. Yeah. That mind moving all the time. So to me, meditation, samatha meditation, or shinkataza after, or also like vipassana and shinkataza are kind of the same concept, different roots of the same idea. So you're trying to get the mind to a point where it turns down the noise. So that's the first part, building concentration practice. Samatha is about single focus on something, a mantra, visualization, following the breath. There's all these different forms. You can have physical forms of this too. Doing prostrations or chanting can be a form of this as well. Focusing on something, overclocking the mind onto one thing, so that like as we're surrounded by computers here, if you were to open a program and it took up 99% of your computer's finite memory, and then you try to open something else, it really can't do that. All of the memory and all of the attention is being used on one thing, and that's really the aspect.
Remember, we did a presentation, one of our seminars. One of the allegories that I used for. Thinking of your brain, your mind, and your ego was a computer. Yeah. It works perfectly.
Yeah. It works, especially nowadays, because everybody knows and has had that experience.
Yep. You do too much, it's an overdrive. You can't process. You shut down if you overheat. So
you need that quietness.
Yeah.
So we try to focus. It sounds funny that we're trying to overclock. It sounds. Sounds like we're speeding things up or adding more in. But really what we're trying to do, is push, create the bubble of attention that slowly pushes and fills that space.
A tech guy will get that one.
And nothing can get through. Right. So if you can spend that time in without having the mind constantly trying to pull you in one way or another, we're built. Just for the sake of understanding our physical form, the past 300,000 years, we've been pretty much in this physical form, and our ancestors prior to that, and we were developed and were able to survive and turn into this form because of the ability to take in data the way we did and survive. And we still are that today. We haven't changed, although now survival is a lot different. Making sure you're driving correctly, or the data inputs we have, we overclock ourselves even more with our devices beeping and chirping and noise constantly all the time. So we've just made our minds even more agitated. So for meditation, to be able to sit on a regular basis and just create that space allows you to build the power of concentration little by little by little. Allows you to turn down the volume on things more and more and more and become unfragmented. And the idea is to eventually remove that form of object, and then that's kind of more what Vipassana is based on, or Shikatasa is just being aware of the state of what you are and who you are and how you are and what is arising around you without any type of attachment to that arising. So that
seems like it's a sort of like a marriage between effort and effortlessness.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, it sounds funny, right? You got to try really hard to not be able to try to do anything. Go back to do the non-doing. Yeah, so we just said last week's. We were talking about this idea of, you have to use your mind to not use your mind. Like, don't think, but you can't think, don't think, because then you're thinking, don't think, and we could do this all day, right? So. How do you just let things go? Well, you can't just do that, super fast. You have to do practice over a long period of time, which is why I always tell people 10 minutes a day on an ongoing basis. Just like, I equate it to working out in the gym. If you want to go get strong, you go to the gym for 8 hours once a month. You end up doing a lot of damage. It takes forever to recover, and you're not helping yourself anyway. But if you go to the gym consistently, every other day. And apply a little bit more pressure to the things you're trying to build, muscle starts to build and strength starts to build. And meditation is no different.
And I find like you're kind of going into your own uneasiness, your own emotional pain when you do take those times to sit down, and you kind of have, it's like your mind is in there trying to get in there, but also sometimes for myself, whenever I sit quietly, like the uneasiness starts to come out a little bit more. Sometimes it's emotional pain, sometimes a combination of all three.
Yeah, so I would say, like, if you sit in meditation for a while, it's kind of like during the gold rush, they'd have the screens.
Oh, sure.
Right, and they'd go into the water and they would like shake all the other stuff away, and then they would look for the things that were left. And I think meditation has a practice of doing that, where basically as we start to shake the screen and a lot of the little things filter away, there's some big rocks left. And so I always say meditation for 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. And then right after that, a period of self-reflection. Those two go hand in hand. As you're going through and, maybe your pan shakes loose and there's something that is just constantly always there. Well, don't throw it back into the river. You're just going to pick it up again. So, analyze it, take it out. What is it made of? Why does it keep arising? Why is it always coming to the surface? And I use an analogy of roots a lot too. You can follow the root of any plant, and it's more than just a single stem. It's tied into a lot of different things, and you have to be very careful, in your mental state of being able to pull things out without doing damage. But if these things keep arising within meditation and have some kind of tie to emotional damage or trauma that you've had in your life, or just being unhappy with a current state or whatever it is, analyze it, understand what it is, what is causing that to be, and then get rid of it. And you keep doing that, pretty soon the screen gets clearer and clearer every time you go through the water. That's the process that we're trying to get to.
Sure.
Weed the things out that are causing this damage.
So, folks, you hear that? Meditation is gold mining. Diamond hunting, too. You can equatable.
It's gold.
It's gold. It's pure gold. All right.
I'll just start changing to like Bitcoin farming or something, so people so kids understand.
You're data mining for Bitcoin. I don't even understand how that works completely.
Yeah.
You're searching the web for little bits of money. For digital money.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll set up like an entire basement full of computers that mine throughout a 24-hour period. They're looking for like these little niblets of currency, digital currency.
Yeah, it reminds me of.
Why can't you just create that? I don't get how that works.
Like 20 years ago, day trading became a big thing. It was the same type of thing as betting on small increases on shifting of prices of things.
It's died down a little, right? This whole Bitcoin mining.
I don't know. I I read about it. But I have no experience.
It seems like it exploded maybe a year ago, then kind of faded out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. So I want to talk to you about religion a bit in terms of what you consider Buddhism to be. So, I mean, there are 1,000 religions out there. Not to mention that a lot of the religions have sub-religions, like you were speaking about. I don't really consider Buddhism to be a religion in most cases. Now, in some of the practices, it has become a religion. It's about worship. And I guess that's how I would separate a religion from, a spiritual practice, spiritual being more inward-based, religion being more outward-based. There's a deity, there's some sort of figure that you're paying homage to and begging not to slice your head off at the end of your life, or whatever the case may be. What do you see what you do as?
Yeah, so I think Buddhism is a religion.
Okay.
Technically. And that's not my definition. I mean, there's a chart. There's like 10 points that basically define if something's a religion or not. Right? Yeah. It has a set following of practices. And there's a figure of a leader or a creator. You can check all the boxes you want.
Sure.
A lot of people, because we're non-theistic, a lot of people already tie that it has to be theistic to be a religion. It's just not true.
Yeah.
The way usually the division is people will ask me, do you think it's a religion or a philosophy? And I'll say, well, it's both. Which is a very middle path, Zen thing to say anyway about everything. Everything's everything.
Let me answer without answering.
Right? Yeah. but it really, I think the way I view most religions are, most religions have philosophy in them, and some philosophies can actually, be treated as religion. So I think that the practical difference between Buddhism and a lot of other religions is, being non-theistic is unique, not having concepts of sin, not having creator stories, not having heaven and hell, being non-dogmatic, being really decentralized. There's all of these aspects that you would typically think of when we think of what a religion is. But I would also say that, and I would think anybody who's Christian would probably agree with me, that there was definitely Christianity was more of the philosophy of what the New Testament was trying to talk about, or like what Jesus's mission was, or like what his philosophy was,
he
right?
was a philosopher,
right? But that was a direction that he was trying to get people to understand and integrate and do for themselves and become different people because of it. And to me, that's the same thing within Buddhism. Is it's a lifestyle, I would say, related to the way that we understand self and what we put back into the world based on all of the condition that we have around us. Yeah. But technically, it is a religion, a complex one at that.
Yeah, technically, I mean, of course, yeah, technically, definitely. But I guess here's where I see the major difference. You can, and correct me, if you disagree, but you can practice Buddhism without calling yourself a Buddhist.
Sure.
You can say, man, there's some great stuff in there. I'm going to take that and apply it to my lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I believe in a lot of what's going on. Whereas in a lot of religion, like if you don't believe in God and Christianity, there's zero purpose to calling yourself a Christian. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's where the difference kind of lies. In a lot of
yeah. So just to extract that back a little bit.
Sure.
Let's say somebody just chooses to be a good, compassionate person, that they take care of people who are suffering, that they try to watch what they put into the world and try not to add to suffering, try not to harm other people, are kind to people and live a good life. What religion are they?
I don't know.
Because that could be any
right.
That could be Islam. That could be Christianity. That could be Buddhism. That could be. Don't they all have kind of the same basis to say?
Yeah, they do. But if you don't believe in God,
sure,
in those,
but
then,
that's another level, right? So if you want to define and say, okay, let's as a base say that if somebody that is undefinable just becomes a really decent, good, caring, compassionate person.
Yeah.
If we all could just do that, we probably wouldn't need religion.
Yeah.
Right? So, people always ask me, do you think everybody in the world should be Buddhist? I'm like, I kind of want to live in a world where we don't need it. If we didn't need Buddhism and we didn't have to talk about it, that's actually a much better situation.
Yeah. Right? That's right.
So if you look at the base of the person, how they're trying to achieve what I just described is through a lot of different paths, to your point. So if you were raised in a certain area and somebody says, because I agree, to have the reward at the end for Christianity, you have to believe in a certain thing, and you have to kind of pay respect to that and live that way, or you don't.
In some ways, even specific actions to do so.
Yeah, or the doorman doesn't, open.
Correct.
Right, and then you can say the same thing about Islam. You can say the same thing about a lot of other things, right? The focus of the structure, I think a lot of it is conditional based on where you are and how you're raised. But, ultimately we're all trying to get to the same aspect of what is the core base. Buddhism just does it without that aspect. We're very humanistic and very empirical. So we're trying to get to the truth of the situation that's evidence-based and self-based, and really understand the truth of who we are and the truth of the universe, not the perception of the things.
Okay.
It's a road that's different because we don't have a source to look to other than the self.
Yeah.
Right. But we're all trying to kind of get to the same thing. I never say all religions are part of the same road. They're not. They're going after different things. But if you really get down to the core of what I think everybody would hope to be, in the pure sense of anybody that considers themselves a Buddhist or a Christian or whatever, if you take the term away, they're really trying to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Being less miserable, not harming others.
Largely speaking, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. Do you consider what you do, now that your practice is religion?
Even in the Zen, my own personal practice, or what we do at the center?
At the center, yeah.
Yeah, so I like to keep a foot in two canoes a little bit, which is always hard to keep balance. So I think what is required now in the West is to build a bridge between the ancient to the current. The nice thing with being non-dogmatic and being decentralized is really the foundation of Dharma or teaching, foundation of what this whole lifestyle is that it's always current. but you have a lot to learn from the past. So if it doesn't fit the current people, if they can't understand it, if it's unapproachable, like going back to, I stopped shaving my head and my face because it wasn't even that it didn't matter, is that it was actually, it was a disadvantage because of, most people thought I was either in a cult. I had people that thought I had cancer. I had all these like negative reactions. I looked weird. I actually had somebody at TSA pull me over and said they had to search me literally because I looked weird.
Really?
Because I was wearing robes, right? So
Yeah.
now I can't talk about the Dharma or whatever else. So I think the group that comes to our center, they're very contemporary. They're very smart people. They from this area. The Detroit mentality. Everybody works for a living. They don't want layers and layers of philosophy and esoteric stuff and foreign language chanting. They want to understand, and they like a little at a time. They want it to be practical and usable.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is I think we're really trying to extract the essence of what this path is and make it very applicable to people in this. So is that a religion or not? I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time defining it other than that it's just a practice.
Okay.
It's a way of living.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I think that's a better approach, at least in my point of view.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to identity, right? I mean, like you said, at the end, if we could get to a place where we're all doing the things like each religion sort of claims to strive for, we wouldn't need religion in the first place.
Yeah.
you
Have
know?
you like heard of Thomas Merton? I think his name is.
No.
No. Okay. He was. I would say he's a monk, but he came from more of like a Christian background, and he felt like having. He actually even suggested this, like putting a hood over, like, or wearing some kind of hood, felt like that got him more into a place of being centered. So where I'm going with this is, do you find that sometimes wearing like a traditional garb can help a student sort of, you know what I mean? Like, now I don't want to say like, just, I don't know, change their, you know what I mean? Their, the way they feel.
Absolutely. And so I just had with one of my students actually was, I don't know, she was writing something about this, or she had brought it up too, because I kiddingly say when I'm at the center, I go through more costume changes than like a Lady Gaga concert. Right? Like, so I come in. I mean, typically in the West, like if I'm at work, I'm dressed, like
it's
I am
actually
now.
really cool.
Yeah.
I think it looks really cool.
You look like a Jedi. I mean, it's hard not to look cool.
I know. I wanted to say that without saying it.
Plus the sword artist thing, right?
It.
Like, it's kind of a combination. So
Exactly.
But it is the, she was kind of talking through this. I thought it was a really interesting concept about how, the external outfit or the external situation can change the internal perception, and I would agree. So I dress very formally when I'm in that role.
Okay.
Typically, even like today, if I would have been wearing my robes to represent the role, but more and more I don't. In the Western world, again, if I'm wearing robes, nobody really knows what those robes are. So I either look like an escapee from a place, or they think I'm walking around in a bathrobe, or they think I'm part of another religion. So it's not really helping in any way. But I do think that the idea of understanding what a role is, within this, like what is a student-teacher role, the West has. We're kind of in dangerous ground a lot of times because we're seeing a very small aspect of another culture, and then we're trying to integrate it without understanding it. Much like I had just said about the whole difference between like Buddha and Hoden. It's not a big deal, right? But it is a difference that most people don't understand, and it can lead to a lot more misunderstanding. So. I think that the robes that I wear, or the outfit that I wear for traditional sword art, so it's the same. I wear hakuman, or kekogi, and it helps me be, I don't want to say like present in that role.
Okay.
I wrote 2 books, and in one of the books, I was talking about this division that I felt like I had to have for a really long time. When I got back from Korea, You brought it up at the beginning. I've been in the same career as a creative director for like over 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that persona.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the creative director, creative guy,
It's hard to believe
marketing
it.
guy.
Look at your face. You know what I mean? It's hard to believe that you've been doing that job
For 30 years?
years.
Well, I
Plus
have gray hair.
another-
I mean,
Well, yeah, but
Where do you think this comes from?
yeah. I guess it'd be worse if I was like 20. Like, talk about a hard life. That I'm,
But it's very stylish, though.
It's right,
It
yeah,
is.
well, yeah.
It's cool. That's the kind of gray hair you want to go into when you get older.
You're like you said, if you can grow it,
hell
grow
yeah,
it if you can
sport it
grow
up,
it.
man.
yeah, for real.
Rock
But
that
like I had
shit.
that role.
You got a good salad. Is what they say.
Yeah.
Got a good salad.
Nice.
And then you have the other ones, right? You did martial arts, right?
I do, yeah.
Do you still
I
do?
yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
and you teach.
Vic, move,
I do
move forward
teach.
a little bit too.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
just make sure
Yeah.
this mic's picking up.
So you teach martial arts, and then you also do other things outside. But when you walk down the street, like when I'm in the role of teaching martial arts, people look at me as a teacher, right? And so they even call me something different. So and I even have I have a name through the lineage. So you get to a weird part where you have all of these names and all of these titles and all of these honorifics and all of these outfits that you're putting on, and it was really hard because I also, like I've said in the past, I still really feel very tied to the kind of the punk culture that I grew up in, and the ethos of that mentality, and still listen to that music. So what am I? Am I the professional guy that works in this world? Am I the crazy artist designer? Am I the 50-year-old punk? Am I the Japanese martial arts teacher? Am I the Buddhist Zen monk guy? It's hard to keep your personality straight. And I was getting exhausted trying to keep those different because in the West, you're even told, you don't bring religion into work. You don't, the martial arts thing is different. You can't blend the martial arts and the Zen together, or the martial arts and the Buddhism together because they don't fit.
Okay.
And you can't be a punk and be a professional, and you can't be a professional and be a punk. None of them were fitting together, and it's exhausting.
Oh, okay.
But
So
you want to be all those things.
So I did, yeah. And so over the time, I've been slowly taking those walls down and understanding that all of those are me, and it's okay to not have to define the role that I am. And now, so the clothing and stuff doesn't matter as much to me. If I'm dressed like this wearing a t-shirt, I'm still all of those things. If I'm wearing the robes, I can still be the punk guy and take and be a little irreverent with things. In my profession, I don't have to wear suits all the time. I can still be a little creative. It's okay if it's the person that's important, not the roles or the titles or the names or the divisions that we put on them.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Well, you mentioned my background. It's this guy right here.
Okay,
So,
Bruce Lee. We got
Bruce
him on.
Lee, yeah.
Oh wait, the microphone is
Is it?
covering him up. His
How about that?
beautiful face there. Okay,
Is that better?
there we go.
Okay.
This guy, Bruce
So
Lee.
he was actually trying to get rid of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. A big saying for him was getting rid of the classical mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And isn't that what
And
you can
sometimes-
do is trying to do is to try to just blend the purity of what the concepts were, but not having the rigidity of what things are.
Yeah. It's just totally trying to refine everything.
Sure.
So to create the maximum with the least amount of effort, I would say. Yeah. So if somebody comes at me, you just kick them in the knee and they go down. That's you know what I mean? That's a high state of consciousness, I guess.
What if you kick him in the balls?
That works too.
Okay. The same. The balls equal.
But he was kind of
to the
like,
knee.
he was kind of like a rebel in that way.
Yeah.
He was trying to get rid of all that.
Yeah.
And trying, if you think, I have the same problem with, not problem really, but I'm in the same situation with traditional sword art. So I learned something that's 400 years old, and it's very, very rigid, and it was under very strict rules, and you can only do certain aspects of it. But I had all this other experience through Aikido and other things that I did. So if I wanted to express that, in some ways I had to walk away from that tradition, use it as a base for my own understanding, and then do something else that was more contemporary and approachable in my opinion. So again, I walked away from that organization to be able to have the freedom without the what do I say, the structure that made it hard to breathe.
Yeah.
And express. So that happens. I think it's happening more and more with all these things we're talking about, religion, martial arts. They kind of have the same baggage, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's the identity.
Yeah.
That's the human plight is to, we pile so much on about, we're trying to find out who we are. You start off as a kid trying to discover where the hell do I fit in this mad game that's going on here.
Yeah, and you're being told who you are, like right from the get-go.
Right. Yeah, from every angle.
Yeah, it's like there's like you have no chance at the beginning,
and there's no education in any school that teaches you about what the identity is, what's the difference between who you really are and the identity, because your teachers don't know. So it's new. I wouldn't say it's new territory, but it's not very well known territory. Yeah.
But it has its place. If it wasn't for the suffering.
Oh, sure.
Right? Yeah. I'm not. That's the balance between the two, right?
And I didn't see balance. I just gave a talk a couple weeks ago. To your point of like, what are we taught to be? Especially because a lot of things we're talking about now these concepts of Buddhism and Zen are not that old in this country. 50 years maybe, and they've been here. Buddhism's been in the West for a couple centuries, but really outward, and people knowing what meditation is and what these concepts are, has not been around that long.
Sure.
The Western ideal and the Western mindset was even the biggest barrier when the first group of monks came here and tried to teach, is they realized they were trying to teach something to people who were trained completely different. The culture was completely different. So if you're from Japan, the aspect of growing up in Japan, in the society of Japan, in a Japanese family, is completely different than growing up in the West. So we take elements, that kind of like I said earlier, we take like one little piece of something and we try to bring it over and try to make a mix, and we can't figure out why it's not working. Mm-hmm. We're not trained to be selfless in this country. We're not trained to be moderate and to not have extreme views. If you're trying to find balance in this country, nobody at any time, not only do they not teach you how to do that, but they reinforce the opposite of it all the time. Mm-hmm. The individual being reinforced in our culture to elevate ego, to elevate selfishness, to elevate greed, is the root of what we do here. There's a reason why the Kardashians are famous. There's a reason why some people are billionaires and the people that work for them are starving to death. There's reasons for these things, and a lot of it comes from this selfish, direct ego that we reinforce on an ongoing, constant basis within our media and our culture and so forth.
I mean, I think it's human nature. I think the brain, period, likes the extreme. I think that's ubiquitous throughout humanity. We like to see the extreme. I agree with what you're saying. Our culture absolutely encourages selfishness and greed. It's applauded. That's what success is. The greedier you are, the more you actually get more. If you're greedy, they'll go give you more. Wait a minute. There's a good episode of The Sopranos where I don't know if you guys have seen this show or not, but Chrissy goes to meet Ben Kingsley. Ben Kingsley, he's himself, but he's going there, and Chrissy's a gangster. He's
himself in it.
Yeah, he plays himself. Ben Kingsley plays himself in the show.
Interesting.
But he goes there because he's trying to get this movie made called Cleaver.
But
anyways,
he's trying to get into Hollywood.
So Ben Kingsley's walking around, and he's this, he's Ben Kingsley.
Tony's trying to get into Hollywood?
No. Chrissy, one of Tony's guys. Gotcha. Yeah, he's a mob hitman. But anyways, they visit Ben Kingsley, and he's walking around during one of these Hollywood things. Mm-hmm. And as he's walking around, people are actively trying to give him high dollar, high quality items that are like $20,000 for this, $50,000, and Ben Kingsley's just chucking the stuff away, and Chrissy's like, "What the hell? You could be giving this out to people for free. You just take it for yourself." Yeah. That's kind of how our society. I mean, that's really the truth. How hard is it to start a business? When you're trying to start off the ground, you're trying to create things, and you're trying to ask people for help. They're like, well, do you have the attention of other people yet? It's not about we'll help you out. It's about how can you help me get my shit going? Yeah. And there's a natural element to that. There's a natural element to that. But that's definitely how our culture is. But I do think there's a natural side to it. I think that our issue is we haven't, that's the civilized element is the other end of that, where we learn to tame that portion of ourselves, because there's a portion of it that's healthy. I mean, America has the achievements that have come through our culture, I think is highly benefited the globe. I think it's highly benefited humanity in a lot of ways. But I think it's a testament to where we need to sort of revisit our values, and what we need to make a course correction in is obviously when it comes to like the planet. Global warming it's a massive issue. It's a real issue. And then of course these not school shootings, but these mass shootings. I think that how long is it going to take before people see there's a real issue at hand here, and these aren't isolated cases of people with simply mental illness problems, and that's why I think that there's systemic of an underlining issue that's just boiling up. And I think that the first mistake that we make is we search for an identity, and no one is here to tell us the difference between your identity and who you really are. There's not enough influence in that. There's not enough influence in the culture, in our practices, whether they be religious or cultural, whatever it is. And what do we do? What's the first thing we're taught to do when something goes wrong? We look outside of ourselves to blame someone else. Sure. So they become the focus of our issues. So I think that I think that because when you mentioned the Kardashians, it just made me think everyone likes a train wreck. So that's what it's hard not to look at a train wreck. But so I guess that kind of brings me to another question I want to ask you. So what's your take on like all of this craziness that's happening? I mean, this need for people to go out and to just slaughter indiscriminately, or sometimes discriminately, but it's still very generalized. It's like, oh, okay, they look brown, let me kill them, or something like that. They look gay or something. Yeah. Let me slaughter these people. Never mind, I could be wrong. They might not even be what I think they are, but I don't know them. I have no idea who these people really are. It's fucked up to do it. What's your take on it?
So I can tell you my fear of it, which is that it's more frequent, and the reason people, going back to what you just said, everybody's trying to stand out and have their moment. We're training people that fame and attention is the only verification of existence, and I don't think it's about violent video games, frankly. I play video games. I know a lot of people play video games. I play video games myself. I don't think... I think they use video games as an excuse because they say it desensitizes people. Well, I've been watching violent shows on TV since I was a little kid. Everything desensitizes us. Our world, going back to Elevation. Is it to say that you've been desensitized when you're a billionaire and you're the people... that you're basically working to death. Sure. You've obviously been desensitized to the plight of somebody who can't afford health care, right? Or basic services just so you can have a second jet. I mean, that's desensitizing, right? So my fear is that we're seeing an increase because of two things: the need for this immediate attention and the thought in these people's minds that this is all I can achieve, and I'm going to achieve it in this way. I'm going to achieve it because every time it happens, it's national news. That person's face gets thrown all over everything. People remember what happened. It's almost like being able to get attention through negative attention. How like a kid sometimes will act out so their parents yell at them because they'd rather just get yelled at because it's the only form of attention they're getting, but at least it's attention. That's what I'm afraid is going on, that you see 2 or 3 or 4 of it. Now the motivation behind some of them are going to be different. There was the guy that was at I think it was the Garlic Festival. Obviously being influenced by this white nationalism, anti-immigrant behavior. I think our leadership in the general state of the country right now, I think it's reverted way back to almost like the pre-civil rights era. I mean, it's really scary. So that's my fear. My fear is that people who are at a certain point in their lives where they think, I'm never going to achieve anything. I have all this rage with no way to get it out. I have easy access to super violent, very destructive tools. And you put all those things together and you give them the right situation, the trigger hits, and that's what they look for. So I hope it's not that. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. I mean,
I think that's pretty spot on, to be honest with you.
It's been going on for a long time. I mean, even going back to the school shooting when we had Columbine, and that was like the craziest thing that everybody had ever heard of.
How old were you when that happened? Were you in school?
I was, I was way out of school.
Okay.
So I'm 50. So was that 18 years ago? 20
Yeah.
years ago?
Yeah, roughly. I was a sophomore when that happened. And it was freaky, 9/11 hadn't even happened yet, and I mean, you're like, wow.
Well, the scary attachment to some of those too is like when that happened.
Yeah.
And we looked at these two people and how they were, and
right.
I remember some of my friends like we were kind of like that. We wore our long coats.
We
were kind of weird, punky outcasts, right?
Sure.
Didn't really like a lot of the other people. Didn't get along with the kind of grand majority of people that were from better better areas, and obviously that didn't trigger us to do that, but when you can kind of see yourself reflected in somebody that's able to commit those things, and like you start to see that the ball is maybe going downhill the other direction. So
I think that one of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that the people that commit these heinous crimes are just that much different from them. I think there's a little bit of all of us inside of these people.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's more important for us to find a way to connect to them to prevent this from happening in the future than it is to isolate them and say, you're just screwed up in the brain and that's why you did it and that's it. No,
it's easy to say they're total crazy people, but even this most recent one, there's very little sign that anything was going to happen. There's some like you talk about
their manifesto or
there's things, but a lot of times they happen very quickly, right? It's not like did he do some things that you probably consider red flags? Everybody says it after the fact, but just because there's some red flags doesn't always indicate that something is going to happen. I am completely behind this idea that I think gun control it should be a lot different in this country.
Sure.
I think the indication of what is the Second Amendment, right? The Second Amendment?
Right to bear arms.
I think it was made for a different time.
Sure.
Definitely, it was written at a different time.
Oh yeah, there's a legitimate cause to rise up against the government.
And frankly, I don't. I mean, I don't like guns. I don't own a gun. I'm not interested in guns. I think there's some very legitimate people who have them and collect them and want them, and they're safe and they never misuse them. But
sure.
A lot of the things that we're talking about, a lot of the weapons are not. An AK-47 is not a hunting rifle to me. I mean, I'm not a hunter, but. They're tool designed. Designed specifically for murdering as many. It's a tool of war. It's not a tool of 1 o'clock in the morning walking down the street trying to save yourself because you feel unsafe in a certain territory. It's not self-defense.
Right.
It's offense.
You see the ridiculousness of that when you have like that open carry sort of. Those guys that go out intentionally with these massive AK-47s on their shoulder and they walk in like McDonald's.
Yeah.
You're just being an asshole at that point. You're intentionally trying to freak people out.
Trying to prove.
You are. You're trying to prove a point. It's like I think there are much better ways to get your point across than freaking out the children in the McDonald's tubes and balls pits. Yeah. It's like that's just not. What's the real purpose of that? But I don't. I own weapons, and I don't think that going around. For one, you're not going to be able to just ban guns. Period. I think there's a lot of fear mongering that kind of goes into that, where people, like, oh, they're gonna take our guns away, or it works the opposite end too, where people are like, well, we should take all guns away. That's just not gonna happen in this country right away.
And that's the problem. Didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
I think
no.
what you just hit right there is the problem is that there's no. So far, there's no middle ground that anybody can agree on. Because
Realism,
I agree the same. I think I think having a government go door to door and take away any form of defense seems scary.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Because where does that line? I mean, I
Exactly.
teach sword arts. I have swords. I mean, I know there were some communities out in California that were saying you couldn't have have swords anymore. Who cares? But this is the problem: is it's the combination of things. It's the combination of the gun that is already not really made for self-defense or has any really practical use in this society.
Sure.
Easily in the hands of somebody who is going to get set off and have it happen. Great.
Right.
Well, how do you identify it?
Man.
You can't identify people who are going to have that trigger go.
Sure.
Very easily, and you can try to make it harder for them to get it.
Sure.
But the last few, there would have been no trigger, and I think that kid got that gun and went through the process and went through the background check, and there's nothing in his background that triggered. Right. So where's the middle ground to say? And I would say if I had to lean in a direction, I would say I would rather lean in the direction to remove them all. Than to just say, well, we can't figure out who's who.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it does help. Other countries have done it. They reduce guns out of the society.
Sure.
And the ability to get your hands on guns is a lot harder.
Yeah.
And therefore, a lot of those types of deaths drop.
That happened quickly in Australia. And New Zealand.
Some horrible massacres.
That was a more recent one.
I think at the very least, to appease both sides, there should be some serious monitoring of people that purchase,
for sure,
these mass, like you said, because these are it's not just a pistol where you run out in 7 to 12 bullets. You're talking about this major, a force of destruction that can do mass. It's a weapon of mass destruction in so many ways, and in our small communities, So there should at least be tougher forms or more observation of people that do own them.
Yeah. But what is that? I mean, that's what I think everybody keeps arguing. I mean, you say...
Well, it's a conversation. We don't want to talk about it.
Well, I mean...
We have to talk about it more.
Think about how hard it is to get your driver's license.
Yeah.
At least to make it as difficult to get a AK-47
or
as it is to get your car.
What you just said in Australia, so... Going through a longer time period and going through more background checks would help. So right now it's 3 days or something. They just run a background check, but the database on most people doesn't include the fact that they're making a kill list at home. Where are the databases that show up?
Exactly.
I think in Australia it's like you apply, and then they review, and then they do interviews, and then you have to take a gun safety class, kind of like you have to take a motorcycle class to get your motorcycle license. And then it processes, and then it's like a 30-day waiting period, and there's more opportunity to understand, and you got to be scared of somebody that needs a gun now. Compared to somebody that I just want to have a gun eventually.
They don't live in a dangerous neighborhood, a bad neighborhood,
exactly,
a violent neighborhood. It's not something that should be an impulse buy.
Yeah, no, you should. You can literally walk into a store and buy it within an hour. It doesn't even take an hour to do it. The background checks take 5 minutes. Yeah.
And even though this isn't a funny subject in any way, I remember a long time ago that I want to say it was Chris Rock doing stand-up, said his whole solution to this gun violence was to make bullets $1 million a piece. If you had,
I remember that.
Yeah, if you had to put a bullet on layaway, the amount of time it would take you to actually get the bullet to kill somebody, you probably wouldn't be so mad anymore.
Right.
It's like a, sometimes humor has got the best answers, but in some ways making it almost impossible financially to ever pull any of these things off. I mean, if an AK-47 was $200,000, very few people would have them.
Well, kind of what you're talking about, it's funny about humor. A lot of the comedy outlets have become the better sources of news. It's that crazy.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing.
I know you have a time constraint.
A little bit.
I just
It's,
wanted to
yeah.
just remind you of that. Like,
Oh yeah, so
2:30,
I get
2:30.
about I mean, if I'm out of here by 3, I'm cool. I got some work I gotta wrap up.
I mean, is
yeah,
there anything
I
else?
wanted
you guys
to, yeah, I wanted to, because we haven't formed this nonprofit, and we're going out there and asking.
You say we haven't formed the nonprofit?
No, we have.
Oh, I was just going to say don't tell people that. Wait a minute, we have formed the nonprofit.
I said having.
Okay,
so
okay.
having formed this nonprofit, and we have a mission, a reason why we're doing this, and we go out and we call people, and we're begging for money, so we're trying to get some money, right? So, and then we hear this question more often, like, why are you doing this? Why did you start the center?
Yeah. So I got into this practice in particular because I was suffering from not just depression, but I think depression was a symptom of the world. Was that? Oh, my pound.
Yeah. Well, it's just the mic. All that up.
So I was in a situation of not really understanding what I was supposed to do in life, right? So and that caused probably depression was the symptom of that.
Okay.
Of going down a path that I didn't really want to go down. And when I got involved with meditation and Buddhism, didn't really even understand a lot of it, even though I'd studied for a long time. I really started to get down and understand it, and started to do meditation and started to do self-reflection. That was the most help that I had found. It worked for me, like fundamentally changing my life.
Okay.
So understanding that I was creating a lot of the situation, and I was creating a lot of my suffering, and a lot of the depression that was coming from it were coming from within, not from without, with it, and blaming everybody else in the world without looking at yourself. That was transformative in my life, right? So when I started to get into it more and more and more, I started to look back and say, I had to do that alone.
Yeah.
I read a lot of books. I didn't really know where to go.
Yeah.
There was nobody in my family that knows anything about it. None of my friends knew anything about it. I'm living in a predominantly Christian country. There's a church on every corner, but there's no temples for miles and miles and miles around. Wading through the amount of time it took me to even get a foundational understanding of what this is all about took a long time. Books can't answer questions back to you when you have them. So I just looked at it as I want to be the person, for others that I didn't have. Like the absence of the person that I wish I had, I now maybe can do for others. So my goal wasn't like, I didn't have this grand wish to go be a monk or to share my head and go to a monastery. That was almost like a means to the end. It gave me a foundation to learn that world. And I'm grateful for that opportunity because it's allowed me to really solidify a lot of things. But we opened the center because there was a lack of contemporary, unique focused, non-esoteric places to go. And I saw the other places that I had been, I saw kind of a revolving door. They come in, it seems weird and crazy, and it's in another language, and they don't understand it, and there's not a lot of grounding there. Some people stay. Some people are really into it, but the majority of people aren't. So we wanted to do something different. And in some ways, our theme was always build a place that we would have wanted to go when we were younger, when we were looking. Great. Now, what does that mean? So we defined it in a certain way. And I'll say the way that we built the center and the way that we operate still, and the way that we talk and the way that we act, just like for anybody, if you become very true about who you are and you are okay with being that person, you'll attract like-minded people who are looking for that, just like with yourself. Like if you're yourself, some people are going to like you, some people are going to not like you. Probably the majority are going to not like you. You're going to find some that really do like you, but those are the ones that you have a lot in common with. And who cares about the ones that are never going to accept you? And we kind of, I have struggled with that sometimes, but we have to really keep focused on, we are who we are, and we're attracting people who are like-minded and like what we do. And if they don't like what we do, there's other places they can go. We don't have to be all things to all people. That's why I started it, is to be a place for people to come, to understand that people have had great success with this path, myself included, that it can be transformative, that it's powerful, that it'll wake you up to what's, the truth of the world around you, it'll reduce your suffering. And it doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be unapproachable, and you don't have to shave your head to walk in the door. You know, you don't have. You can turn it into your life, right? And so that's what keeps me going, is because I do hear from people after. You know, every now and then somebody will walk up and say, "This place has changed my life." Great. If that even one person can come up and say, the efforts that you guys did, I found this place, it really got me out, you know, out of wherever I was, and it's changed my life, and I'm going in a great direction. It's all worth it. It's always all worth it. But, you know, we're fortunate enough to have more than just one person.
Do you want to give a shout out as to how people can reach you and join up, or?
Yeah, so I mean, anybody in the local area, obviously, you know, we draw people from around the area.
What area is it?
Yeah, so well, right now we're in Clawson, but the center is located in Troy.
Okay. So
in Michigan, Troy, but we draw people from Birmingham, Royal Oak, you know, kind of surrounding areas as well. It's dharmagatezen.org is our website.
Okay.
We have the center in Troy as our main center. It's a pretty large place. We just moved there last year.
Beautiful place.
Thank you. Thank you. We also have a permanent space, a new permanent space up in Saginaw.
Oh, okay.
So we have a teacher up there. Reverend Kosho is up there from Saginaw, from that area. There's a Dharma student up there from Saginaw as well, and he just opened that about a month ago. Found a cool little space. He was kind of in a shared space prior, a space that he can leave his stuff there and call his own, and we had a great turnout up there. So little by little, you know, who knows? In the future, maybe I'll open a couple more areas.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I had to admit, though, I was like, when I saw that place, I was envious. I want a place like that.
Yeah.
Easy Awakening Studio.
Yeah. Well,
it's it's like the perfect spot.
Oh, it's a beautiful
it's
spot.
It's a big, large space. You have your small spaces. You have your office.
Yeah.
It's versatile. You can do a lot with it.
Yeah. Did you ever see the old space? I can't remember if you ever came in there.
No, not the place off 15 miles, the one that we went to.
Yeah. So it's the same. It was the same. Same park, right? But when we started, so we've been, I think we're hitting 5.5 years now. So when we started, we were in a space half that size, but it was still industrial park, and it was the same colors on the wall, but we didn't have the big tree up, and a lot more cramped, and the floor was, like vinyl, but it's still, we made it work. We had not a lot of space, but we grew in time, and when more and more people came, when we started kind of busting out the seams, we were able to now move into this other big space. This was the vision of kind of my original vision to do this. But
so you moved within that park?
Yeah, we just moved. Yeah, our first suite was way down at the end. We were Suite X, and we just moved down to the middle. And the guy knocked a wall down between two areas and built the big open space. But, I've always liked, and I get a lot of comments back. We had some guys from out of town coming to a retreat that we did, a clergy retreat back when I was with the other order. And there's a guy from Italy and somewhere else, and they're like, this fits Detroit type mentality. It's like it's an industrial park. It's like urban, this urban Dharma feel, and a lot of people get thrown off. You guys may have as well. Like, you're pulling into this industrial park and the walls are all blank, and it's like it's not. It doesn't look like a nice area, but when you walk through the door, like you feel you feel like you've taken a trip somewhere.
It's a little oasis. These bamboo trees. You can hear the cellos in the background.
So it's funny though. It's just paint.
It's
like a paint and
colors
a floor.
make the mood. Right, I mean, look. You can change, the mood of how someone feels with colors.
Yeah, definitely.
But all right, well, it's been awesome. Thanks for coming out. We previously filmed. We were trying to film a different documentary in the past. We actually are still working on using the footage for something. But what happened was, I don't know if Victor explained.
No, of course. I think so.
So Easy Awakening started to explode into these potentials, and people, they grew very interested in what we were doing. So when we became a nonprofit, it was like, wait a minute, come do this. So we started working on the infrastructure of the organization itself, and then the scope of what we were trying to do it got huge. So we had to put that on hold a bit, and then we came into, we were going to do a documentary series, which that originally the path was, it was going to be the Ego and Me, the path, and then like 5 others.
Yeah.
That turned into, we brought some partners on board working with these organizations in Virginia. She's now on our board of our organization. It's Mental Health News Radio Network. There's this major organization in China that wants us to go to China and film a few episodes. So we're like, okay, well, let's turn this into an ongoing seasonal television series.
Yeah.
And so there would be like roughly 8 episodes per season. And so that's why we never finished it up, because we were going to film all kinds of stuff for it, but we still have the footage. We think about turning those into different episodes for things, either on the podcast or even for on Amazon, because they were pretty high production. So
and I wanted to like get you on because there are different ways to approach mental health.
Big time.
And that's a big part of what we're doing, and it's kind of a big part of our mission is to show different sides of how to get there.
Exactly. It's not just about taking a pill, it's finding a remedy first without having to change the chemical structure of your brain. I think is the best thing to do. Then if that doesn't work, then start talking about some mind altering chemicals. So
that's what unfortunately happens. I had the same experience going through, like when I was starting to be, I had like some incidents when I was a teenager. Like it really started to become uncontrollable as a teenager. I had a suicide attempt when I was a teenager. Spent time in a hospital. First thing they wanted to do was put me on drugs. And I didn't want to, and my parents didn't, force anything at that. They basically let me decide. And then later, of course, it didn't go away. I had to go to therapy. As a teenager, I didn't really have a high opinion of therapist at the time. And so then it was okay for a while, right? And then it flared back up, of course, because it wasn't ever fixing or dealing with anything. It was just distracting. Times were distracting and okay enough to get through.
Sweeping it under a rug.
But I did hit a point, where I did start having some medication. It felt like it was something had to help. And I did not have a great experience with it. But I think what ends up happening with a lot of the stuff with medication in particular is it's designed, the chemical is designed to do a very specific thing. And that is to remove the extreme. So, when you're on a drug for depression, it's trying to keep you off the cliff. It's not there to make you happy. It's actually stopping you from being happy. People don't realize that it's trying to level the mood. It's not trying to, and
turn
I think,
in the opposite direction.
Right, and I think my view was like, I'm going to take something and I'm going to be happy all the time. and then I was like, no, I'm just a zombie all the time. Right? So, and I think what will happen though is like, it's a tool that gets you to understand. To your point, like if you're using it, we're just trying to put the brakes on so that you don't have a break, that you don't fall off the cliff,
so you don't
that
wreck
you don't
your
have
life.
A suicidal attack, right? That you're not going in any direction, but the long-term use of it is to
get off of.
to work through it, right? It's a stopgap. It's not a solution, but how many people that just say, hey, I'll just be on Prozac the rest of my life.
Because people, and again, that's the nature of their brain. They want the miracle pill. They want the solution. Okay, I'm busy. I don't have time to focus on my mental health. I just touched my tail. I told everyone else not to. But I have no time to focus on that. So what's the easiest way? Bam, put it in. It's almost like, well, my kid won't shut up. What do I do? Here's a video game. Shut up. Same thing.
And you're right. It's easy. I mean, I have, I take a pill every day for allergies, right? I had bad allergies as a kid. I've always had bad allergies. So, now I buy it. It's like I can get 365 pills for like $10 at Costco. Right. So, I mean, I don't even think about it. Every single day I take it. I have issues with asthma. So that I have this pill. I take the asthma. I don't have that problem anymore. So we're so used to that. Like, I don't want to have allergy attacks all day long. And I like to breathe. So, like, it's just easy because it's actually working that way. But, mental health just doesn't work that way.
No, it does not.
Yeah, and usually they're, having experience, like my sister, having gone through that, and still going through that, is they put you on different stuff to see what's going to work. And, we were talking about this where, it with Leon the other day, where he's like, the side effects are right away, but what it's supposed to do could take up to 6 weeks.
6 weeks, to get into the system.
And and the side effects are often just horrendous. So why would you want to be on that for that length of time and have to deal with that side effect? Side effects for that period of time.
And sometimes the side effects are worse than the cure. Right? When I was on any of that stuff for the period that I was on, I mean, it does so many other things. I even, again, a lot of stuff isn't funny, but there's a lot of irony. Like, when you see the TV commercials and they're like, here's a pill for depression. One of the side effects is it may cause depression. So the side effect is the thing that's supposed to cure.
That's crazy. It may give you suicidal thoughts.
Right.
Wait a minute.
It's right. Isn't that what the pill is supposed to help?
Crazy.
But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
of course they have to cover every base possible.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
But
some of those
I
really
just-
do.
you know, and the stigma of it too. Like I always tell, like we had the Zen and Depression group that we started, and we had a little bit of a talk around, people taking pills and being medicated for some of the things that they're on, and there's a stigma of people, especially saying, "I don't want to be able to do that," but like, or maybe meditation now, and then I don't take my medication anymore. And is it possible? Well, yeah. I mean, I went off medication. You know, this is like 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. I went off, and it was hard for a time, and then this helped for sure.
Yeah.
But I also, needed to be on what I was on at the time and go to therapy at that time to help. So like I don't think it's one or the other. I always tell people, if you're on something, you need to be on something, stay on it. Stay on it until you feel like, meditation isn't the new pill.
Yeah.
It's not the new miracle cure. It takes a really long time to show any good effect, just like some medications.
Well, that's the long-term plan.
Right.
Incorporate that in your life and learn how to become better at it.
Right. Follow the root. Right.
Exactly.
Follow the root of
Exactly.
following the root of the suffering and where it's generating.
Exactly.
Can have a really great way, and then maybe eventually you won't feel like you need to be on or you don't need to be on.
Exactly.
Yeah, it does have to be a long-term plan. It has to be. It really, for it to be effective, it has to become a lifestyle.
Right. Oh, yeah. You have to incorporating meditation in your life. I suggest that for everybody. I don't give a shit what you're going through. Meditation, it just makes it can easily allow you to benefit your life in many ways.
There's no downside.
There's zero downside to
There's
meditation.
literally no downside to it at all.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I always get like, I don't have time to meditate.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
know.
always get
Oh,
that
yeah,
excuse all the time.
You can meditate in many, there are deeper forms. I remember sometimes you get people that, no, you have to go super deep within to meditate. Not always. There are the more shallow forms of meditation. You can meditate in your car. You can meditate at your desk.
Yeah. I've told people 10 minutes to start. And when people tell me they don't have time, there's this great old Zen thing. You've probably seen it. People put it up on Facebook all the time that if you should meditate for 15 or 20 minutes a day, and if you can't sit for 15 or 20 minutes a day, you should be sitting for an hour because there's something fundamentally wrong with your life. I'm a busy guy. I mean, I find time. I've met a lot of people who have a lot of things going on, people that have kids and work and dogs and, hobbies and whatever, and they're still sitting 10 minutes a day. Usually saying I don't have time is, that can be true. The perception that I don't have time.
That's a mindset.
Yeah. Finding ways and
it's an avoidance strategy.
Yeah. And I'd mentioned with Path Foundry, this thing that I'm working on right now, this view of a holistic lifestyle. Yeah. A lot of that is about time management. And being able to set aside time and understanding the perception of things drives a lot of our reality. So I have people even track everything they do for a week.
Just give me an idea.
And they go back and they're like, wow, I thought I was so busy, but when I really look at the time that I'm putting in, I have large gaps of time. And like, so you have 10 minutes. We can prove from the data. So I'm trying to, like I do with my job, I'm trying to show people the actual data of their lives and their moods and how much time they're putting into things and how they view how all these things tie together, how much sleep they're getting, how they're eating, how much exercise they're getting, how often they get outside. Like all those things in combination is really what's going to help you achieve any goal you want to be able to achieve. So that's like the system I put together.
Yeah, it seems like a lot, and it seems like stuff that could probably overwhelm you if you start to think about it too much.
Right.
But I always suggest just try one thing for like the 10 minutes for a short amount of time, and you'll see that'll make a huge impact in your life.
And then go up to 15, then go up to 20.
Exactly. Never look at the mountain like, holy crap, because you'll never do it.
Right. And don't have the expectation that just because you start sitting in meditation 2 weeks later, you're like happy and the whole life, changes. It just doesn't work that way.
We've talked about in our podcast, like in this, it's, for me at least, is my point of view, is the worst thing is to have a goal in this type of endeavor.
Right.
To have a goal. It's experiential. Every time you do it, it's different.
Let it be an experience.
Exactly.
I mean,
because you're gonna get caught up in going, oh no, like, oh, there I go, I'm back 2 steps again.
Right.
When you
Yeah.
probably haven't fallen back, really. And speaking of consciousness,
Yeah.
you haven't fallen back. But, when your mind gets in there, it can easily dissuade you, and, and the discouragement will set in, and in some cases, despair.
Yeah.
I try to remind myself at the center a lot. Look, when we first started to now, when we first started, we sat alone for a long time. Not a lot of people knew we were there. We had a very small group.
Yeah.
And even now, a lot of times we have big groups, and sometimes we have small groups. And it used to bother me to like, how many people, how come we didn't have a lot of people today? It's like the numbers don't matter that much.
Yeah. Same with our podcast.
I'm to the point now where I've done like a couple to almost 300 Dharma talks, like the amount of time. It's like sometimes it's what people need to hear, and sometimes it's not. But I try not to like, what does everybody need to hear today?
Yeah.
Because I when you start to try to tailor or get too focused on the minutia, or why are you doing something, or that you're failing, and we struggle all the time. We try to put programs together. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. You can't get too really attached to saying it has to be, the center is going to be exactly this way, and this is exactly how people are going to be when they come in here, and it's exactly how they're going to be when they walk out.
That's why we like the podcast in this format, because we're allowing people to be themselves in a comfortable environment. And that's when you get the most honesty coming out of folks.
Sure.
And that's what you don't want to make things so rigid so that you're controlling every step.
Yeah.
You allow things to be, as they are, and to get to the realism.
Organized chaos.
Exactly. All right. Well, I guess we'll stop there.
Yeah,
it's about time up. So thank you so much for coming on. Yeah.
Appreciate you guys having me.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
All right. So stop in camera 1. Stop in camera 2. Stop in audio 3. Stop in. Stop in. Stop in. Stop in.